The story of the Soviet Union is one of the 20th century's most monumental sagas. Born from the ashes of Imperial Russia, growing into a global superpower, then collapsing in a dramatic, nearly unprecedented implosion. It is a tale of revolution, ideology, ambition, war, repression, and reform. The Soviet Union emerged from the chaos of World War I and a crumbling Russian Empire. By 1917, the country was racked by war, poverty, and discontent. The Bolshevik Party, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized this moment. In the October Revolution of 1917, they overthrew the provisional government, promising peace, land, and bread. This marked the birth of the world's first communist state. The Bolsheviks, soon called the Communist Party, plunged Russia into a brutal civil war against anti-Bolshevik forces, the Whites, and foreign interventionists. Through ruthless tactics, including the infamous Red Terror, they consolidated power. By 1922, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, was officially established, uniting Russia and several neighboring republics under a centralized communist government. Lenin's vision and Stalin's rise, 1924-1941, Lenin's death in 1924, triggered a fierce power struggle. Joseph Stalin, once a minor party official, outmaneuvered rivals to become the Soviet leader. Stalin's rule transformed the USSR through forced collectivization of agriculture and rapid industrialization. These policies aimed to modernize the backward Soviet economy, but came at horrific human cost. Millions died from famine, purges, and political repression. Under Stalin, the USSR became a totalitarian state with a vast secret police network and widespread censorship. The Great Purge of the late 1930s eliminated perceived enemies of the regime, including many party officials, military leaders, and ordinary citizens. Despite the terror, Stalin's industrial policies turned the USSR into a major industrial power by the late 1930s. World War II was a defining moment. Initially signing a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany in 1939, Stalin was shocked when Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa in 1941, invading Soviet territory. The USSR bore the brunt of the Nazi onslaught, suffering tens of millions of casualties. The Red Army's resilience was legendary. After brutal battles like Stalingrad and Kursk, the Soviet Union pushed back the Nazis, eventually capturing Berlin in 1945. The victory cemented the USSR's status as a superpower and drastically expanded its influence over Eastern Europe, setting the stage for the Cold War. The post-war years plunged the world into ideological and military tension between the Soviet Union and the United States. The USSR imposed communist regimes across Eastern Europe, creating a buffer zone against the West. The world became divided by the Iron Curtain. The Cold War saw arms races, proxy wars, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and tense confrontations like the Cuban Missile Crisis. The USSR invested heavily in nuclear weapons and space exploration, famously launching Sputnik in 1957 and sending the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into space in 1961. Internally, the Soviet system stagnated. The planned economy struggled with inefficiency and shortages. Political repression continued, though after Stalin's death in 1953, leaders like Nikita Khrushchev and Leonid Brezhnev alternated between limited reforms and hardline policies. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was facing deep crises: economic stagnation, military overreach, nationalist unrest, and a widening technological gap with the West. Mikhail Gorbachev rose to power, promising reform through glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. Gorbachev's policies loosened censorship, encouraged political debate, and aimed to modernize the economy. However, these changes unleashed forces he could not control. Nationalist movements surged in the Baltic republics, Ukraine, and elsewhere, demanding independence. The Soviet grip on Eastern Europe weakened, and communist regimes collapsed one after another in 1989. The failed August 1991 coup by hardline communists accelerated the breakup. By December 1991, the USSR formally dissolved, splitting into 15 independent countries. Russia emerged as the successor state, but the superpower that once challenged the world was no more. The rise and fall of the USSR left a profound legacy. It showed the power and limits of revolutionary ideology and state control. It shaped much of the 20th century's geopolitics, culture, and science. Its collapse signaled the end of the Cold War, but also led to economic hardship, political turmoil, and conflict in the post-Soviet space. The Soviet Union remains a subject of fascination, both for its vision of equality and justice, and for its brutal repression and failure to adapt. Its story is a cautionary tale of how a vast empire built on ideology and control can rise spectacularly and then collapse just as dramatically.